Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
As always, we're taking your submitted materials and really kind of digging deep to pull out those golden nuggets of knowledge.
Exactly.
And today we're going to be looking at English expressions and idioms. We got a document with 800 common expressions and their meanings.
Wow.
So this is going to be a fun one, and I think everyone out there listening who's looking to really finesse their English skills and sound more fluent, this is going to be the deep dive for you.
Absolutely. And it's not just about sounding fluent, is it?
Right.
It's about kind of getting under the skin of the language. These phrases are really packed with cultural insights.
Okay.
Almost like little time capsules of history and values and humor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this.
Yeah.
What makes idioms so important? I mean, why bother with these like kind of strange phrases when we could just use plain, straightforward language?
Well, think about it this way. Idioms paint a more vivid picture. They go beyond literal meanings. You know, they add that extra layer of color and personality to what you're trying to say. Take cost an arm and a leg, for example.
Okay.
Now, it's not a medical bill, is it?
Right.
It's a way to express just how expensive something is.
Right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, isn't that a bit extreme?
Yeah.
Saying something costs an arm and a leg?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit dramatic, isn't it?
Well, that's where the humor comes in. You know,
Right.
it's not meant to be taken literally, of course.
Right.
But that exaggeration, it highlights the feeling, the frustration of having to pay, you know, a ridiculously high price for something.
I see.
It's like saying, this thing is so expensive, it's practically costing me a body part.
And that makes it more memorable, too.
Exactly.
Like if someone said, air conditioners cost an arm and a leg this summer,
Yeah,
you can almost feel their pain, you know?
you can.
You're right.
Absolutely.
It's not just a fact. It's telling a little story.
Exactly. And that's why idioms are so powerful. They connect with us on an emotional level, making our communication more engaging and interesting.
Right.
You know, they tell us something about the culture, the shared experiences, the way people view the world.
So speaking of everyday expressions, you've given us a whole list of phrases people use for greetings, requests, apologies, even expressing opinions. Let's see what cultural insights we can uncover there.
Sure.
So, for example, there's, can I get a coffee? Which is pretty straightforward.
Yes, very simple.
But then there's also, could you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Which feels a bit more nuanced.
Yes. Could you do me a favor? Suggest a slightly bigger request.
Okay.
Something that requires more effort than simply getting a coffee.
Right.
It's interesting how even small changes in wording can signal these subtle differences in social dynamics.
And it's not just about being polite.
Right.
It's about understanding the unspoken rules of the situation.
Exactly.
Like if you're asking a close friend for a small favor, can you do me a favor? Might feel perfectly natural. But if you're asking your boss for a significant favor, you might use a more formal phrase. Like, would it be possible for you to?
Absolutely. That's a great point.
Yeah.
The context really matters.
Yeah.
It's like we're learning a secret code
Yeah.
for navigating social situations successfully.
Right.
And your source material gives us a bunch of examples of these codes. For instance, when expressing opinions,
Yes.
you have, I couldn't agree more, which shows strong agreement.
Right.
Then there's, that's not what I've heard, which politely challenges a viewpoint.
Okay.
And you have a point acknowledges the validity of someone else's perspective.
So it's not just about saying what you think.
Right.
It's about saying it in a way that fits the social context.
Absolutely.
Well, what about those times when you just want to say, enough already? Or, no way.
Well, even for those situations, English offers a range of colorful expressions. You know,
Okay.
you have don't get me started, which is a way of saying you have strong opinions, but maybe don't want to launch into a full-blown rant. Then there's not a chance in hell, which is more direct, you know, expressing absolute refusal, usually with a touch of humor.
Yeah.
And then there's the classic, I screwed up,
Yeah.
A straightforward way to admit a mistake.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes these everyday expressions so fascinating.
Absolutely.
They show us how language is used to navigate the complexities of human interaction.
Yeah.
Whether it's expressing agreement, disagreement, or even just acknowledging that you messed up.
Absolutely. And they remind us that even in seemingly simple phrases, there's often more than meets the eye.
Now, before we dive into expressions that reveal deeper cultural insights,
Okay.
I want to pause here for a moment.
Sure.
What stood out to you so far?
Well, what strikes me is the sheer variety of ways
Yeah.
we can express even the simplest ideas.
Right.
It shows just how flexible and nuanced language can be, adapting to different social situations and relationships.
It's like we're uncovering all these subtle layers of meaning
Yes.
within everyday conversation.
Absolutely.
And that makes me even more curious to explore those cultural values hidden within these expressions.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that next.
Let's do it. It's fascinating, isn't it?
What's that?
How these seemingly simple phrases can reveal so much about a culture's values and beliefs.
Yeah.
It's incredible. They're not just words. They're glimpses into how people view the world. Their relationships with time, their ideas about success, and so on.
So, let's uncover some of those hidden messages.
What's that?
Okay, we've got some great examples in our source material.
All right.
Like, time flies.
Yes.
On the surface, it just means time passes quickly.
Right.
But I'm guessing there's more to it than that.
There is. Think about the context where we use this phrase.
Okay.
It's often when we're having fun, when we're engrossed in something, when we wish time would slow down.
Right.
It reflects a sense of urgency, that feeling that there's never enough time, that we're constantly racing against the clock.
And that connects to some pretty deep-seated anxiety.
Yeah.
Like the pressure to be productive, to achieve, to make the most of every minute.
Yeah.
It's almost like time flies is a subtle reminder that we're always running out of time.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual pressure, is it? It reflects a broader cultural emphasis on speed, efficiency, and progress.
Wow.
This sense that we need to be constantly moving forward, always striving for more.
I never thought about time flies in that way before. It's amazing how these seemingly simple phrases can have such profound implications.
They really can. And here's another example from your document.
Okay.
Actions speak louder than words.
Okay.
It seems straightforward enough, right? What's
Yeah.
the underlying message there?
Well, I guess it's saying that what you do matters more than what you say.
Yeah.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Precisely. It highlights a cultural value placed on deeds over empty promises.
Right.
It suggests that true character is revealed through actions, not just through words.
And that makes me think about the whole concept of integrity,
Yes.
of being true to your word.
Absolutely.
Actions speak louder than words is almost like a cultural reminder to live by those values.
It is. And it also suggests a certain distrust of words that aren't backed up by actions.
Right.
Like, if someone's constantly making promises but never delivers, people might start to question their sincerity.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it brings us to another interesting expression from your source material.
Okay.
The world is your oyster.
Ah, yes.
Now that one sounds pretty optimistic.
It does, and it speaks to a very specific cultural mindset,
Okay.
one that emphasizes opportunity, ambition, and the pursuit of individual success. It's the idea that you have the potential to achieve anything you set your mind to, that the world is full of possibilities just waiting to be explored.
So it's not just about having a positive outlook.
Right.
It's about embracing a certain way of life,
Yes.
a belief in your own agency to shape your destiny.
Exactly.
It's like saying, go out there and make your dreams a reality. The only limits are the ones you set for yourself.
Exactly. And this idea is deeply ingrained in many English-speaking cultures, particularly in the United States.
Right.
It's tied to the concept of the American dream. The belief that anyone, regardless of their background, can achieve success through hard work and determination.
But isn't that a bit idealistic? I mean, the world isn't always fair. Not everyone has equal opportunities.
That's a valid point, and it's true that the world is your oyster can sometimes be used to gloss over systemic inequalities or to place undue pressure on individuals to succeed.
So it's not a universally applicable truth.
Right.
It's a reflection of a particular cultural perspective.
Exactly.
One that values individualism, ambition, and a belief in the power of self-determination.
Exactly. And that's why it's so interesting to explore these idioms. They're not just linguistic quirks, they're windows into a culture's values, beliefs, and aspirations.
Okay, so we've seen how these everyday expressions can reveal a lot about cultural attitudes towards time, action, and opportunity.
Absolutely.
But now I'm curious about the flip side. What about those idioms that can be tricky to understand or use correctly? Our source material actually highlights some of these potential pitfalls.
Yes, and these pitfalls can be especially challenging for non-native speakers
All right.
who might take idioms too literally or misinterpret their intended meaning.
Right.
For example, the word literally itself can cause confusion.
Hmm.
It's meant to emphasize that something is true in the strictest sense, but it's often misused as a general intensifier.
Right, like when people say, I literally died laughing.
Exactly.
Obviously, they didn't actually die.
Of course not.
It's just a way of exaggerating their reaction, but that can be confusing if you're not familiar with the idiomatic usage.
Exactly. And that's why it's important to pay attention to the context and the intended meaning, not just the literal words themselves.
Speaking of confusing idioms, there's one that always makes me chuckle.
Oh, yeah, which one?
Break a leg?
Ah, yes, a classic.
Now, that sounds like a terrible thing to wish someone.
It does imagine a non-native speaker hearing that before a performance.
I know.
They might genuinely worry about their physical safety,
Right.
but of course it means the exact opposite. It's a way of wishing someone good luck, especially in the context of theater or performing arts.
I remember once telling a friend who was about to give a presentation, break a leg. And they looked at me like I was crazy.
I can imagine.
It took a while to explain the meaning and reassure them that I wasn't wishing them harm.
Right.
It was a funny misunderstanding, but also a reminder of how easily these idioms can be misinterpreted.
It's a great example of how important cultural context is.
Yeah.
What might seem like a straightforward phrase in one culture can be completely baffling or even offensive in another.
Okay, so we need to be careful about using break a leg with people who might not understand the idiom.
Yeah.
Are there any other expressions we should be cautious about?
There are many, but one that comes to mind is cat got your tongue.
Yeah.
It's a playful way of asking why someone is silent, often used in informal settings. However, it can come across as rude or dismissive if used in the wrong context.
Right, it's not something you'd say to your boss or a stranger you just met.
Exactly. It's reserved for those more casual interactions where a bit of playful teasing is acceptable.
So it's not just about understanding the meaning of idioms.
Right.
It's about knowing when and how to use them appropriately.
Absolutely.
And that requires a deeper understanding of social norms and cultural cues.
It
It
does.
was like learning the unspoken rules of a language.
Yes.
The subtle nuances that separate fluency from mastery.
I agree.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it really is.
So much more to these expressions than meets the eye.
Absolutely.
Okay, so before we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
let's recap some of the key insights we've uncovered.
Sure.
We started by talking about what makes idioms so important.
Yeah.
They're not just quirky phrases.
Yeah.
They add color and personality to our language,
Right.
allowing us to express ourselves in more nuanced and engaging ways.
And as we've seen, they're packed with cultural information.
Right.
From time flies to actions speak louder than words to the world is your oyster.
Yeah.
These phrases reveal how people view time, action, success, even their own place in the world.
And we also learned that some idioms can be tricky.
Yeah.
Especially for non-native speakers.
Especially.
Literally, break a leg, cat got your tongue.
Yeah.
These are all phrases that can cause confusion or even offense if used in the wrong context.
So it's not just about understanding the meaning of an idiom, it's about knowing when and how to use it appropriately.
Right.
It's about recognizing the cultural context,
Yeah.
the unspoken rules that govern how these phrases function in everyday conversation.
And that brings us back to your original question.
Yeah.
Why bother with these quirky phrases when we could just use plain, straightforward language?
Yeah.
Well, I think we've found the answer.
Because idioms add depth, humor, and cultural richness to our communication.
I agree.
They help us connect with others on a deeper level.
Yeah.
To understand not just what people are saying, but also what they truly mean.
It's like learning to speak the language of a culture's heart, not just its head.
Exactly. And as you continue to explore the world of English idioms,
Yeah.
remember to embrace the challenge, the humor, and the insights they offer.
Okay.
Because ultimately, these quirky phrases aren't just about mastering a language.
Right.
They're about understanding what it means to be human.
That's a great point.
So keep exploring, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep having fun with the wonderful world of English expressions.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with me.
It's been a pleasure as always.
And to everyone listening out there, thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
See ya.
We'll see you next time.